the average person's eyes to what was going on. And some things were put in place to protect some sharks as they needed to. So we get back to the flawed science, and I'll focus on the sandbar shark. You know, as a kid in Long Island, we caught them. We called them brown sharks. They were usually 50 to 100 pounds, and we caught quite a few of them. And they are very prolific. They also have enormous fins for their size, like gargantuan. So they were targeted. So they're protected now. And now there's, I mean, schools of them everywhere. And I'm not just talking about Florida. You know, we're here in South Florida, but they are a menace all the way up the East Coast. So we brought it up again. Pat Price, he put a GoPro down on a rig on a live bait and hooked an amberjack. And within about 10 seconds, in that frame of view of that GoPro was a dozen sandbars, and you could repeat that on every wreck that you dropped on. And you know, it got to the point where, you know, I stopped fishing some of the wrecks just because I felt like I was hurting my own fishery stock by feeding these sharks. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it pisses the clients off too. You know, you as a charter boat captain, your job is to put fish in the boat. And, you know, there's nothing, you know, and I've seen it firsthand. We'll tell that story later about what happens when you get tired of getting sharked in the Bahamas. But
Seeing a Buddhist.
it's coming out in this episode. But yeah, I remember, you know, we would go that inshore wreck and you know, for Goliath, and the amount of sharks there are just ridiculous.
So, you know, when I first moved to Florida in the early 90s, I charter fished, and you know, we would have a run. There would be runs of sharks. The black tip sharks would run on the beach in the wintertime, and masses of them. And honestly,
Spanish mackerel kind of runs, or
oh yeah,
really?
Oh yeah, and that still goes on there. Like MacArthur Park on Singer Island, you see the aerial, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them.
No shit.
Yep. We used to go. It was really cool when we had a good hard east wind. We would get just outside the break, and pop the kite up, and fish a bait just outside the surf. Like we had to make sure our bait wasn't sitting by a surfer, and just pop the kite up just outside the surf. And because the spinner sharks, you know, they jump and spin, you know, the black tips and spinners, we would take 2 strands of number 4 wire, super light wire, put it in a drill and spin it up, and then twist that. And that was very supple. They couldn't kink it. It was like using cable, but it was smaller diameter. So we would do that and then hook these sharks with the charter clients who wanted to catch a shark, and they would jump and spin. It was great, you know, and they're not really an issue per se. And then in the springtime was when the bull sharks would show up, and we would catch them on the deep wrecks, 240 to 280 feet of water. 180. There was 3 wrecks. There was the Andy wreck. Then we just called them the 280 barge, the 240 barge.
The Titan out that far too? There was a Titan. Is it?
No, the Titan's is on 6 Mile.
On 6 Mile. Okay.
But here, you know, you have the at a Stewart, you have the Wickstrom wrecks, which are in 180 feet of water. Those, you know, that would be the type of thing where it would be, or the Rankin, which is 125. But so we had a really cool rig. Actually, we would take 10 feet of number 19 wire with an 18-0 circle hook, which is giant, a barrel swivel, 10 feet of 400-pound, and a 3-way swivel and a 3-pound lead, because you're in the bulk of the current there. We'd take a goggle eye and put it in his mouth and out his eye socket, so he had a good firm hold on it. We would drop that on the wreck, and the idea was you wanted to hook a rudderfish or an amberjack, preferably a rudderfish, because it was a smaller bait for the shark. But I don't know how the hell those fish got that 18-0 circle hook in their mouth, but the rod would be in a rod holder, and it would take, you know, you see it get bit, and then you would see the rod load up. And I would say to the captain, I was a mate at the time, be like, all right, we got him. And within 30 seconds, the rod would just bowl over, and you'd have a bull shark.
I've fished that wreck with you before, and, you know, specifically targeted amberjack, and we never got to put the rod in the holder. It was, you could feel it, you know, as you're dropping, right? So you're manually controlling, right, the drop, so you don't get backlashed, and then all of a sudden you just say, oh, that sumbitch is just like, oh, lock her up, boys, and hold on.
But, you know, we would catch these sharks in the springtime, and they were big. They were 250 to 400, you know? And no, actually, you know, the coolest part of that was we'd fight the fish. They'd come up, and a lot of times cobias would come up with them. So I'd have a live bait, and we'd pitch. I caught a 60-pound cobia off the back of a bull shark one time doing that. That was pretty cool. But anyway, that's beside the point. But then they'd be gone. You know, a couple more months, they'd be gone. And the reason they'd be gone is because starting, I believe it was July 1st, the coastal longline season would open up, and there were some guys that would come in and set short gear for longline, 4 or 5 mile gear on the bottom to catch these sharks, and they were able to sell them. So fast forward now, you know, there's bad press about shark finning, and you see videos of a whitetail reef shark, which is endemic of like the Galapagos, laying there in the bottom, still breathing with no fins, which is terrible. But that has nothing. Nobody's doing that here, and people go out of their minds. So much like the Florida bear hunting, people were trying to do management with their heartstrings, and that never works. And you know, Colorado wolves, take your pick.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So now everybody watches these shows on TV, and they become an instant expert. And the minute you kill a shark, I mean, it's a fish. It's legal to kill a bull shark. It's legal to kill this one or that one. So, but marinas won't let you dock at their dock anymore with a shark. You can't kill a shark, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And it's just, it went from them being in big trouble, which they were, to they're not in trouble anymore. There's tons of them, and sustainable management through sustainable take is not a dirty word. It's not like they're hopefully not going to waste.
No,
but,
that's called conservation.
Oh, absolutely.
That's exactly. I mean, that's no different than hunting. You're managing a resource at that point in time. For the greater good and for the longevity, not only for you and I, but for our kids and our grandkids and for future generations. And I think at this point in time, you'd think we were smart enough to be able to do that.
Well, we're not.
Apparently.
People are stupid. I'll give you an example. There's a guy named Tom Osborne, great guy, commercial fisherman, and he had one of the last permits. And it was in the news, and you'll know this story when